Welcome to the 10th week after Pentecost. It's Thursday, August the 1st, 2024. This is the Manna at the Tap podcast, where we as a community actively seek the spiritual nourishment our souls crave. I'm Gloria, your fellow traveler on this spiritual journey, and together we guide each other, offering and receiving insight and interpretation from our daily lectionary readings, which provide the manna designed to nurture our spiritual growth. In Psalm 32, David struggled to communicate with Yahweh and kept silent even as he felt his bones wasting away. Day and night, he knew he had sinned, but he avoided connecting with Yahweh, even as he felt the hand of Yahweh heavy on him and his strength being sapped. He sent for Uriah, Bathsheba's husband, to come home from the battle, and then he tried to convince him to go to his home, hoping he would sleep with his wife and be responsible for her pregnancy. But instead, Uriah chose to rest among the palace guards. David then tried to get him drunk, but he still would not go home. This angered David, and he spent all night plotting Uriah's death. In all of his plotting and planning, David never engaged with Yahweh. In the morning, he sent Uriah back to the battlefield with a letter to Joab to have him put on the front line so he would be killed. When a messenger came with the news of Uriah's death, David was cynical in his remarks that people get killed in war anyway. But day and night, Yahweh's hand was heavy on him, till in Psalm 32, verse 5, he acknowledged and confessed his sin, exposing and admitting the guilt of his sin. The response from Yahweh was not punishment, but forgiveness. Yahweh forgave the guilt of his sin. This took place in the privacy of David's sacred space. He was now back on the path of Yahweh, and he was now able to instruct and teach others to go in the ways of Yahweh, knowing Yahweh's loving eyes would be on them. David declared in Psalm 32, verses 1 and 2, that a person is blessed when they know their transgressions are forgiven, their sins are covered, Yahweh is not holding on to them, and there is no deceit in the person. Today's lectionary text is Psalm 51, attributed to David when the prophet Nathan confronted him publicly about the affair with Bathsheba. Even without the Hebrew title, the psalm immediately and dramatically sets the tone for what will unfold. It is a familiar picture of disaster and deceit falling into a lament or a complaint to God. But what is unusual about this song is that the complaint is lodged over and against the psalmist's sinfulness, not someone else. This is a psalm that focuses explicitly on confessing sin. What unfolds is not about David, Bathsheba, and Nathan, and we can even add in Uriah, Bathsheba's husband, who was murdered. Listen carefully. This psalm is about God's grace and forgiveness and God's willingness to offer David a second chance. Let me say that again. This psalm, Psalm 51, is about God's grace and forgiveness and God's willingness to offer David a second chance. It is about God's grace more than humanity's failure. And this is good news to all of us who stand as sinners. It is asking Yahweh to have mercy and asking Him to be gracious. This is more than a simple cry for help. David admitted he had wronged Yahweh, and now he asked Yahweh to be gracious and merciful. The psalmist immediately appeals to Yahweh, whose character is steadfast love and abundant mercy. He asked him to have mercy on him according to Yahweh's unfailing love. He admitted his sin, his transgressions, his iniquity, and the evil. The psalmist admitted his willful rebellion, not only against humanity, but also against Yahweh. The psalmist is vulnerable, reminding us that no one can escape sin. We are sinful at birth and sinful from the time our mothers conceived us. It is not biological or hereditary. We are born with sin and the guilt that accompanies our sin. Yet Yahweh wants all of us to turn towards His faithfulness so that sin never gets the final word. Yahweh's very nature is His steadfast love and abundant mercy. These give us insight into the intimate care with which Yahweh has. This describes Yahweh's limitless and unconditional love, compounded by His abundant mercy. I have to read that again. This gives us insight into the intimate care with which Yahweh has. This describes Yahweh's limitless and unconditional love, compounded by His abundant mercy. We were conceived in sin in our mother's womb, but Yahweh's abundant mercy refers to His womb compassion. This is the deep, compassionate love a mother has for a child. So when we cry out to Yahweh for mercy, He responds to us. He hears us the very first time we call out to Him. And His response is to blot out our transgressions, wash away all of our iniquity, and cleanse us from sin. Yahweh knows the inescapable depth of our sin condition, and Yahweh wants to bring about the new creation of a clean heart and a right spirit within us. Only Yahweh can accomplish these things in the life of the psalmist and in our lives.